Okay, so let's start first. Do you guys have any questions so far? Based on what we covered last class? Okay, then let's go with interview questions, like what is JDBC and what is it used for? Maxim?
Good evening. GDBC is like just Java database connectivity. It's used for connecting our database with our IDE, so we can work with the code on our Java, and it's kind of like a special tool which we use like for transferring information from our database to our IDE. I mean, basically.
Yeah. Uh, so just Java application is fine. Don't mention IDE. IDE is
Oh,
just a
okay.
tool.
Okay. Java application. Yeah.
Yeah. You can write Java code in a plain text editor, So IDE is just helping you to write code. Okay. Next question. What are the steps in order to connect to a database with JDBC? Akif? Okay. Elena.
Hey, Nazar.
Hi.
As far as I remember, there's 5 steps. The first one, we register the driver class. After that, we need to create connection. After we create connection, we creating the statement. Yeah, we create the statement, then we execute the queries, and then at the very end, we close the connection.
So why, just an extra question, why is it important to close the connection?
Why is it important? That's a good question. I'll research for that.
Simple answer for that, to avoid memory leak.
Oh, yeah.
Just memorize that and they will answer all the questions. But like I said, for us, connection is closed anyway when the application stops running. It's just a good practice and people are looking at this anyway. Okay, and JDBC link, what does it consist of? Dana?
Hello.
Hello.
So we specify JDBC and then we put MySQL. And then we put the database and the credentials.
Yeah, so more specifically, we specify the driver type. That's MySQL, as you mentioned. Also, we specify a location or host and port of the database server, and database, which is optional, and credentials. Credentials in form of parameters. Okay, thank you. So before we go, just another check. What did you guys feel like still is not so clear of what we did and why we did? And what should we go over?
I think the last topic was kind of tough.
Last one is the serialization, kind of.
Like pretty much
beans.
everything we've done within IntelliJ was kind of messy for me.
Yeah, beans and models, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, pins and model, we don't cover it as much because you will talk a lot about them in API. And we need to focus on database part. So this, you will have at least 2 sessions regarding, or 2 or 3 sessions regarding beans in API part. So from database, like we mentioned, we will just need to prepare a query. So you get the same type of information from, wait, which one? This was your framework. From databases you get from API. So what's the most confusing regarding beans? Like, let's discuss that. So do you guys find it difficult to understand why we do that or how we do that?
How we do that?
Okay. So how we do that, I know it's confusing because we don't do anything. It's all done automatically with, where is our stuff? Here, with this bean processor to bean list. But let's do, if you think it's gonna help, let's do our own. And I'll do the easier one. Which one was it? I think the user profile. So pretty much what we did, we just used the library that we imported. And again, let's try to do that on our own, this size. Maybe that will clarify things. So I'm going to create a new constructor for user profile that expects the result set. And what I'm going to do is just try to populate fields of the class with the values from a result set. Let's do that in try catch, maybe.
Why you put here that try catch in
Yeah, it's
constructor?
going to be annoying. So if you, every time you create a user, you will have to put a try catch. So imagine you will try to create many of them in your script, and every time you will need to have a try catch. So it's easier to have one in the constructor. And we can, so yeah, there is a lot of things we need to take care about. Result set. Okay, so this should be covered everything. Now let's see how we can use it. So we'll just put, okay, let me create we have a track of this stuff. Is it profiles? Yeah. Okay, so again, we need to query, right? And we want to select everything from user profile. Right. Okay, with that, let me just double check. Okay, so now we have a result set. Remember, the result set okay, so here's the table user profiles. And result set comes as an iterator. So if you click next, you move to the next line and so on. So for each line, we will be passing our result set into a constructor of our user profile class. So what constructor is doing, remember, I created set address, result set get address. So I'm going to set the address of the object based the value that I'm going to get from result set under address column. Let's see that. So we can say while okay, I'm just gonna add DevX signature. I create new user profile. I remember how it's just user profile. And pass my result set. And just print the user. Right? Put
Is it always takes that much time
That
to
compilation
run test?
to run what?
To run this test?
Depends how much code you had. Is your compiling faster?
Oh, it's now quick. Okay, got it.
So
I thought it's like even longer than UI, but no.
So yeah, you see all the user profiles. No, the first that was compilation. The actual run took like 2 seconds. So yeah, you see, so for each of the row from the result set, I created a new user profile myself manually. You see new user profile, result set passed into constructor. And for each of my class attributes, I'm gonna try to find the same column name as my class attribute. So yeah, this is not like something crazy. I don't know, we just take from result set and assign to variable of the class. But still, that's a lot of work for each class to create these constructors, make sure the types and so on. So it's pretty much this thing is covered with this library that we use. Where was it? This processor to bin list. That's why we provide the class of our bin. So it knows what variables, what class variables class has. So it can search the result set for those columns. And it works with any class. Yeah, that's it, just any class. So, okay. Did this clarify something? What is still confusing, guys? So it didn't clarify anything?
No, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, it did. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Yeah, it just, it looks kind of scary, but yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, I think this is scarier than just, in process. So again, libraries is something you should get used to working with, because first of all, you don't know where you're going. So which company you're going to get hired to. They might use whole different bunch of libraries that would give you like this stress. But again, you don't need to know how it does things, as long as you know what is it for and how to work with it. Also, let me see, it was Apache DButils. For each library, there is a Java doc like this. So if you're confused with something or you want to learn something more about some library, you can always come here and check for the particular method you're interested in. In our case, we have bin processor to bin list. Let me find it. So bin processor is in Apache Commons DButils package. Okay, so Apache Commons DButils package, bin processor, and here all the methods. The one we used was to bin list. So convert the result set into a list of Java beans. And the whole description, convert the result set into list Java beans. This implementation uses reflection and bin info classes to match column names to bin property names. Properties are matched to columns based on several factors, so on. So yeah, and you can always find the information you're looking for in this Java docs. Okay, yeah, and it's 100% certain that if you join a company that already has a framework standing, there will be a whole bunch of different libraries and tools that's just, impossible to learn. But again, as long as you can understand what is it doing and kind of figure out how to work with it, you don't need to understand how is it doing it.
And basically, they will show us all this what they're using in project during the transfer knowledge.
If you get lucky, yeah. So it depends who you're working with. I've had situations where when there's a framework was like, I don't know, it has at least 1,000 different classes and just whole bunch of different packages. You just get lost when you look at it. And the KT I had about framework is like 30 minutes. So you have to go through each and everything, look how other people are doing through their pull requests and so on. Yeah. If you get a good people you're working with, then,
Okay, I will be picky on interview.
Yeah, by the way, that's not only their hiring, you're also looking for like a job or a company that you want to work for. Yeah, we're in kind of different situation, but still, you wouldn't want to work with someone who's keep like just watching over your shoulder, and keep asking you what's the update every 30 minutes, Trust me, there's a lot of companies, a lot of jobs. So if you feel very uncomfortable, just start looking for something else.
But I think they all on interview will told us that I have a great team. We have a great team. They are very supportive, and we don't know what it will be.
Yeah, you see, you don't know what. The same thing with us, they don't know. We tell them a lot of good stuff too.
When you go on a date, it's the same. You never know what the guy gonna be.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you can see. Yeah, it's very good if you have multiple offers, then you can kind of think not only, yeah, money is important, but still you can think of which people were you comfortable on an interview, who didn't just who talked to you, who didn't just ask question and didn't like give a second break. There are interviews like that, so they might be paying better, but if you think like it's going to be stressful environment, you're going to end up on the market in a month or two again, because there's no need to handle it. Like if you don't feel comfortable at work, there's always a better job for you. Okay, so before we go, again, where was it? This bean processor. So again, the bean processor to bean list does just that, converts our result set line into a bean. And to bean list, just convert our whole complete result set into a list of beans. So I'm gonna keep that. It's not gonna break anything. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this as an example so you guys see. And what I wanted to do is, so first of all, with RDB utils, I'm gonna quickly add another class. I'm not going to add any new methods, just some of the methods that we already have. It just makes more sense to put into another class. So for example, whenever so the main functionality of this class is to connect to database and query database, converting to beans, converting to map. What else did we have? Seems like a little bit they're in the wrong place. So I'm gonna move that. So we have only execution related parts. And we don't have to call this methods multiple times. Method after method. So we need our get column names here too. Get column names. Yeah, and I'm gonna show you what's the benefit. This is fairly quick. Okay, and I need a bean processor. Yeah, we don't actually need it here anyway anymore. Okay. Matter. This is done. Extra. Okay, so the DBUtils class, we have only open connection, execute statement, execute query, and close the connection. Okay, and now result set handler is what actually does the processing. So it can convert our result set into beans. Now we can do 2 beans and 2 list of maps. Okay, the only thing I'm just gonna wrap it. So now I'm returning, instead of a result set, I'm gonna return the result set handler. So all I did is created a new result set handler and passed our result set, right? See, we have a constructor result set that expects a result set. So what it gives us, let's go to one of our classes. I remember we created methods. So you see, every time I needed to store the result set and then convert. So now we can do differently. we query and we call two beams. Transaction dot class. Same thing here, query two beams. Okay, what do you think? Does it look better?
Yes, more clear.
Yeah, read and readable. So we have the details query and two beams. And there is also another method to list of maps. Okay, so it's a little, okay, I actually stopped sharing accidentally. Does anyone know how to remove this zoom thing from here?
What do you mean?
Move it to the other screen if you have one.
This I can't move. Oh yeah, there you go. Thank you. Much better. Yeah, I know you guys don't see it, but I had the zoom thing here, so I couldn't click on my classes. Okay, so now here we have query again, two beams. They might not remove too much. Okay, I think I resolved all my problems. Okay, so far any questions? We should jump to another topic.
Nazar, are we able to use a data annotation here? In
Yeah,
user
so
profile?
this was the first one we created without. So let me use that since we learned it.
But that would substitute all of this, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be, yeah, let's keep the empty constructor. We can also remove the string. Yeah, with data annotation, things look so much better. So same as beam processor. Beam. We have to change our class too. Okay, so with that we got another error. We don't have an ability to have only results set. We can create a separate method. Okay. Okay, so we have query to result set. So it gets you the result set. And if you call the simple query, which is more common because you're going to want to work with maps or beans, then you're going to have result set handler, which will give you ability to put it into beans or hash map. Okay. So with that, so how did you guys take a break yesterday?
What do you mean?
Is it
Like-
regular?
Usually it's 15 minutes from 7:30, but we started at 6:30, I guess, at 8 o'clock for 15 minutes.
Yeah, but so during Ramadan, you guys have nobody who's fasting?
Yes, I am.
So yesterday they still took a regular break, 15 minutes, and
Yeah, that will be great.
so you want to,
Yesterday was 10 minutes actually.
so let's do 15, so 15 minutes will be fine at tomorrow,
Yeah, that's fine.
but what time?
7:30.
Okay,
Thanks.
sure. Okay, cool. So just remind me if I get lost, 7 minutes. Okay, so far, guys, any questions?
I have a question.
Good.
I missed one class, so I guess that's why I have a question. It's about GDBC workflow. So everything is pretty clear. I just don't understand when we are creating a statement,
Mhm.
what we really do, like why we're creating a statement. Is it like, could you explain me, please?
In
Really quick.
simple words, yeah, there's a lot of things going on with that statement, but we don't really need to know about it. But in simple words, statement is, that's an actual functionality that executes queries. So we cannot execute query on connection. See, connection only has either open, close, create statement. So just like general things, the metadata and so on. But to execute a query, we need a statement. And connection creates that statement. And remember, we have two types of statements. So for plain execution, we use regular statement. And if we want to parameterize, we use prepared statement.
Mm-hmm.
And prepared statement, same, coming from connection. Connection prepares them. So pretty much statement is something that we use in order to communicate with database, and connection is just to establish a connection, something like that.
Okay, yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, so
Can I also ask,
yeah, sure.
when we use this object 3 dots and params,
Mhm.
params, it's just a syntax, or it's just
Yeah.
something. It should be always params.
Oh no, that's a name. So params is the name of the,
It's a variable name.
yes, param.
Okay.
So object 3 dots is the same as object array. But big difference between object 3 dots and object array in the parameter list. If I call a method, then I'll need to give a query, right? And I will be forced to put an array if I put it object params as array here. So then I will have to do new object array. Even if I don't have any parameters every time, right? So what arcs give you opportunity to give as many as you want objects, or give none, which is only query. So that's the main difference with what arcs and object array.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? So do you guys remember what is deserialization and serialization?
Process version of data type, any data type into Java object, it's a deserialization.
Yeah.
Also, Nada, could you please explain again which one method we should use first, result set or result set handler? I'm so sorry.
So on the database utils, we have query and query to result set methods. So if we query, it gives us result set handler. And then you can just chain them. So like this, query dot to beams. So this is method chaining. And if you query to result set, so there's a different name of the method, to query to arrest. So that sends a query, it gives you result set.
So it depends which method we will use, query or query to arrest, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sure. We'll try to add a couple more methods if we can, but generally this is it. So what I wanted to talk about is very quickly cover creating, updating, and deleting, and try to add some of them to automation as a method. But yeah, we'll do it after the break. So I'll start the break now because we have 1 minute left.
Oh, Nazar, by the way, can you please push this code to the GitHub so I can pull it? Just wanna follow after you. Thank you very much.
Exactly 1 minute. Yes. Okay, so that's done.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. Okay, guys, are you back?
Yep.
So, any questions so far? Okay, so let's quickly look. Do not follow me for now. I might go a little quicker. So I'll just show you all the create, update, delete. You can practice later, and we'll try to add it to automation as well. Sounds good?
Yep.
Just give
Yes.
another minute, just in case, for other people. So how comfortable do you guys feel with database?
You mean SQL or like
General.
in general? It's
Need
okay.
some practice.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Let's see. What about SQL?
It's way more simple than Java, which is cool.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, on the interview, nobody's gonna ask you to automate database, most likely. That's usually it comes to queries when it's on the interview.
So no one care about Z connections, Z last two sessions?
Yeah, they might ask, like specific question that I asked. I never heard anything different. And then there's not much actually else to ask. How do you establish connection? What is the JDBC link? And what is JDBC? So this is like the questions. And then for work, and that's where you're gonna need actually automate it.
Nazar, soft skill mentor recommend us if we are not very confident with the databases and with the SQL queries to put this in previous job experience, not in current. But even if we didn't put, does it mean that we should know how to? Because if we're performing UI and API, we should be familiar with these queries, and because we need to retrieve data from database.
Of course, yeah. If you don't put SQL, it doesn't mean, even if you don't put, they will still ask you if you put API. But to tell you one thing, so in my batch, 90% of the people weren't comfortable with SQL overall, and everybody had it in their resume and it was fine. So the main thing why, because SQL is not as, in general, database questions are not as popular during interview. So I would say only like 40% or even maybe 30% out of all the interviews, they will be asking you SQL. That's one. And yeah, if you're planning to focus on interview questions, the main focus is Java, of course. On the second, I'm talking only about technical, so Java comes first. Second is usually Selenium, then API, and then database. Of course, it will differ by the specific role they're looking for, but in general, Java is almost 100% of the times, and Selenium 80%, and then API 70, and then SQL 40 maybe, database stuff. But yeah, but anyway, just try to put some time to practice. If you did practice, you should be good already. Just put some extra time before you start API, because API will be a little bit confusing too in the beginning, but also after the API, you should be more confident with database as well, I think. Okay. Okay, so let's look at the create tables. I'm gonna use this example we have here and create a very simple table. So to create a table, you'll need name of the table, name of the fields, and definition of the field for each field. So I'm gonna create a new SQL query, paste here. I'm gonna use so create database is just what create database and the name of database. You see, and we have database created. So I'm gonna use that database. And I will create a table. So the syntax is create table. You provide the name of the table. So my table is the name of the table. And you list the columns, column name, column type. And there's also so many different options, which you don't really need to remember. We're not creating databases on daily basis, tables.
What is unsigned?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And integer and 6 in parentheses, is it 6? It is like the max amount of integers, right?
Numbers, right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Auto increment. So if we insert the record, it will auto increment, and it's a primary key. Then first name, varchar, maximum 30 characters, not null. So it cannot be null. If somebody's inserting records, they must specify ID, first name, last name, and email can be null. So I'm going to create that table. Refresh. So now I have my table in the list of tables in these columns: ID, first name, last name, email. Okay, that's what comes to create table. Let's quickly check. Drop. Okay, let's come back to this later. First, we'll try to populate table. So inserting records into the table. So we have insert into command. You have to specify the table name you want to insert into. We don't need this. This is optional. So I'm going to insert into my table. And we can skip the first one since it's okay. you see the John Doe is inserted. So I'm specifying no. Oh, first, when you inserting records, you need to provide values in the same order as they are in the table. So ID, first name, last name, email. And whatever can be null, you can specify as null, like an email, for example. ID, I'm specifying as a null because it's already auto increment. So it's going to increment by itself. Right, so let's add his wife. And now query. So you see John Doe and Jane Doe. So email is null because it's allowed, and ID is auto incremented. Okay. So that's what it comes into to insert to. We can also specify the values. How did it work? It's first underscore name. So that's another way. If you provide the name of the columns, then you don't have to put all of the parameters, right? Okay, just let me actually copy it so we have both of them. Okay. So, see, Jack is inserted too. So if I specify the columns, I don't need to put all of the parameters. But I must include the ones that are not null, for sure. Okay, so that's inserting.
Nazar, I have a question here. If you have enums, right, you can have enums.
Yep.
And you're trying to insert, do you need to type exactly how is your enum, or you can use some kind of indexes or anything?
Not sure about the indexes, but yeah, exactly as you have the list of values.
Okay.
Might be, you can try that. You can create a table, just make it enum instead of varchar. Okay, let's go to update. So update query is used in order to update records. If you have a record created and you want to update a certain column or multiple columns for that record. One thing to remember with update query, it's always preferable to use where clause. And I'll explain why. So update table, we specify the fields, and we have a where clause. So I'm gonna update my table. And I'm gonna I wanna update Jack's email. So we'll say email, set email equal to and comma separated, you can specify multiple fields. So let's say, well, let's do this example first. And where clause. So where clause also, it's preferable that you use IDs. When you try to update a record, you use IDs, so it updates only specific records. Since IDs are unique, right? This way you can be sure that you're updating only the record that you need to update. So see, now we have Jack's email. So if I don't have a where clause, what do you think is going to happen?
Everything will be updated?
Yes, correct.
Like every email?
Yep. So every single record will be updated and all of them will have email, Jack's email. That's why where clause is used to filter the particular record or group of records that you want to update. Okay, and another one, let's insert someone else. So now I'm gonna update multiple fields. So I'm gonna put the email for James, and I'm gonna update his last name. Okay. And where clause. You see, last name was updated and email is added. So different ways. Only one field, or you can do a comma separated list of fields. Okay, that's update and delete. Same way as update, delete requires a where clause. You already guessed why. So if you don't have a where clause, it's just going to delete all the records. And where clause helps you filter only the records that you want to delete. And again, it's preferable to use IDs. So I'm going to remove James Bond. See, it's gone. It's gone. Okay. Now, drop and truncate. So this is another interview question. Let's start with truncate. So what truncate is? Truncate is used in order to clear out the table, or on the other words, remove all the records, but keep the table in the database. So if I call truncate table my table and select from it, it's empty, but it's still in my database. Let's insert just a couple of records. Okay, and drop now. And drop, on the other hand, removes table completely. So if I run it, see there is no tables anymore. If I try to call select, it says table doesn't exist. So let me put that into our interview questions. another quick thing. So regarding joins, there is another thing that we didn't mention. And it might be an interview question, even though I never heard it before. So there are multiple types of relationships. It's one-to-one.
One-to-many.
Yeah.
Many-to-one.
And many-to-many. So many-to-one is the same one-to-many, just, you know, which way you're looking at it. So these three are the most common, but again, one-to-many is the main way to go, because one-to-one doesn't make much sense. You can have it one table, or so in simple words, when one record in first table has only one matching, another table. So if you join these two tables that has one-to-one relationship, you will have only one record. One-to-many. So one record in first table has multiple matching records in another table. So if you join this table, you're gonna have the many number of records. And that's pretty much all we did. Most of our databases had that, most of our tables had that relationship. The only one-to-one example was, I believe, user and user profile, right? So user can have only one profile, so it's one-to-one. Okay, one-to-many is you have account and account transaction. So it's one-to-many. One account can have many transactions, right? And the last one, many-to-many, where was it? Where was I? It's when multiple records in first table has multiple records in the second table. So honestly, I don't even know an example of this. This is very hard to manage if it's many-to-many. So if you have 4 records in one table, matching 4 records in another table, how many records are you going to have after you join these tables?
Could you repeat, please?
We have 4 records in one table that are matching 4 records in another table. How many records will it be in the result if you join these 2 tables?
Same 4.
4.
What is
One-to-one.
No, it's not one-to-one, many-to-many. So we have 4, let's say, employees with ID 2 and 4 employee profiles with ID 2. If we join
8, right?
more like 16.
Yeah, 16.
So it's duplicating or multiplying. So for each of these, you will have 4 of these. So 4 by 4, 16, right? Yeah. So that's why this is very hard to manage. So imagine you have one employee with ID 2 that has 4 employees with ID 2 in another table. So again, for each record from first table, we will have 4 records in the matching table. And if you join, so 4 by 4, 16.
Do we have example of this in our framework, in our database?
No, I don't. I never seen this in any of the databases that I've been dealing with. Like I said, I don't know if it has to be a super specific example. Like I can't even bring something up from a real life, like without even talking about tables. What kind of entities, multiple entities can have other multiple things? You know, it's just, I don't know. It should be very, very specific examples so people do this many to many.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, just for your records. Okay, so we gone through that. Before we do this in automation, do you guys have any questions? Create, drop, truncate, insert, update, delete.
Yes, Nazar,
If we have some, go ahead.
who creates these tables basically, in their work?
I don't even know, honestly. They're usually always there. So it should like database administration, DBA. I would go with them.
Got it, thank you.
Usually when you join, I mean, unless you join from the very, very beginning of the project, it also depends on the company. If it's a startup, the backend developer will do everything, you know. It depends, but usually like database administration, DBAs, and so the basic structure, the main structure, and then anyway, the database backend developers will create tables because they need them for their specific like services that they create, right? So the main structure will be designed and created by other team, but then going forward, growing, adding new services, it will be added by developers. Okay, and Timur?
I don't know, it's like a silly question. If you have like tables with different like dependencies, and if you're deleting this table, which has like relations with other tables, what is gonna be like, it's just deletes, or it's gonna show you should like provide more?
So if you drop the table, then it's just gonna drop it. So you will not have that relationship anymore. They're not direct unless the relationship are specifically assigned. That might cause an error. Still, I'm not sure, but you see, if we go to alter table, and you can specify foreign keys. So if you create those relationships, that might cause an error, but still, I don't really think so. And again, inserting is not that simple too. You can insert into account, but then you will not have any transactions. That's still fine. So nothing will stop you of inserting into a single table, like physically, but later on, for example, if you insert a transaction for account that doesn't exist, it just doesn't make sense logically, but you will be allowed to do that anyway. Or for example, insert user profile for a user that doesn't exist. You know, it wouldn't make sense, but it's still allowed. It's not like so tight related.
Thank you. I don't think I will need it, but just
Yeah.
making sure.
Yeah, pretty sure you guys will forget all this. Like, even me, since I don't use it, I forget it every time. Like creating tables, inserting. So I'm pretty much for each batch I was doing this, and still I can't remember it because I don't use it at all.
At all?
Yeah, that's why we don't remember anything.
That's why practice is the most important. No matter how much you read or watch videos, it won't be as so. Like if you spend 2 days watching video, it's more productive to spend 5 hours practicing.
But we're watching videos because we want to practice. But when we start practicing, we don't know what to do, and then we start watching videos, and it's just
Restart.
Stuck in the loop. Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's the best. From my experience, for me the best practice was solving problems. Like I just like that stuff. So whenever I couldn't do it, I would watch videos, but I would go to YouTube, watch like 2-3 minutes videos instead of watching the whole class again. So that might be, and just trying to, whatever I cannot solve, just try to solve myself all the time. That helps a lot.
Nazar's the keyboard merge. Do we need it?
No, I don't think so. So pretty much all you need, we will cover. And again, database is not, even if you're asked on an interview about database, and if you didn't answer all the questions, but you did good with Java, they wouldn't worry too much about database. Database is the very least thing, unless it's like a database role, you know. But still, overall, in all the interviews, usually database comes at the end. Like it's the very least important topic. Still important though. And you can see even by the utilities, we only have like one class and another helper class, and that pretty much covers all the database stuff for automation. SQL is a little bit more asked.
Oh, quick question, Nazar. Are all those actions that you just showed, are they irreversible?
So drop and truncate, I believe that they're the only ones that are not, they're auto-committed, so you cannot revert. Yeah.
Truncate, you cannot reverse.
Drop too, but you need to revert. This is entailed because data loss will not be recovered after doing it. Yeah, drop and truncate, both.
And is there usually only like one backup for data?
I never had an experience backing up anything. So, but usually, I mean, they usually have backup databases, yes, but meaning not revertible. It's for this current database. So if you have a backup database, then you can revert anything because you have pretty much a copy, right? But within a database, a single database, you can still revert like updating and deleting records. It's not auto-committable. Like you have to commit the changes. But yeah, if they have a backup, that's just a complete copy of the database. So you can revert anything, even deleting it. It's not called revert. It's more like, recover, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so let's add this auto automation. So also what I wanted to do, we can make our database more parameterized. So when we open, there are better ways to do this. It's just a huge topic. So we'll do it simple way, just replacing a string. So if we open an empty connection, we will go to the master. Remember, it's like without use keyword, you need to provide a database dot table in order to select. And we'll do the same thing. Just to override this, overload this method. Okay. So now all our methods, if it's opening, if connection is not open, we will open a default, meaning without connecting to any database. And if we provide a database, then we will connect to that particular database. Remember, we have if statements everywhere. So if you open connection explicitly, then it will stay that connection to database, right? And if you want to connect to a different database, you will need to close it. Remember, close assigns to null, so you can reopen again to a different database. Cool. So with that, let's test it because just to make sure it works. Oh, this is not going to work. Digital bank. So you either explicitly open or provide digital bank dot. Okay. And this will also give you ability to query. If you open a default connection, you can also query multiple databases within the same server during a single session, like single open, single connection. Okay, where were we going? So we need to do.
And can we add them to that properties databases?
Yeah, we can.
Like reference.
Oh, you mean databases and just this? You can create an enum, for example. That would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Just because list of databases is like a, static list of values. So enum is a good for it. One for configuration properties, it's usually the environments. So if you add, what's going to change here, servers and databases will be, database names will be the same. The only thing for different environment, you're going to have a different server address, right? Different host and different port, port the same, sorry, different host. And you might have different credentials. So you can set up in your properties multiple JDBC links, and based on the environment you're running your tests in, for that server you will connect to. But again, it will be identical. It should have the same databases, same tables, so all your queries will work. You just change the IP and port. Let me drop it here so it's a little more visible. Okay, so one thing to mention, when we execute a query, we call execute query method for either statement execute query or prepared statement execute query. On the other hand, for deleting, updating, inserting, this is not a query, it's more like a statement. So I already added here method execute statement, and we provide a SQL statement, which is insert, update, delete, all those types. So what it does, again, we check the connection is open or not, and the same simple way, return statement dot execute SQL statement, and that's it.
Is it find our open method here without any parameters?
Yeah, so this will open.
Oh, we override it, okay.
Yeah, the default. Okay. So now let's add some other method. Truncate table. So we're not gonna do insert table or create table. But truncate table might be useful. So string. Okay, and again, return execute statement, SQL statement. Okay, so now we can truncate any table. Let's test it out. Create some table and then try to truncate it. So as simple as that. Connection will be open automatically to default, so I'm specifying database dot my table. Drop command denied. Okay, your user doesn't have an access to do that. So we'll keep this just for as an example. Now, update. So update. I'm gonna do the same thing we did with query. So we have an option to provide parameters, and the same way it will replace question marks, remember. So if params length, we can call the regular statement. We don't need else. And query to REST. Okay, just not execute query, but execute statement. Just execute. Okay, so now let's try updating stuff. I'm not sure if you have access for that either. Let's try. So we have single record, Jane Doe. Let's try to add an email. So again, update, table name. What was the table name? My table. This is test database, my table, set email equals to and the where clause. And again, it's all can be parameterized. Let's actually test that. So see again, remember, parameters will be replaced. First parameter replaces first question mark. So we set email equals to Jane and where ID equals to 1. Yeah, but go ahead.
Sorry, to make it more dynamic on line 31, we can put it into var args, right? As a parameter, we can put var args and
yeah.
To make it more dynamic here, yes.
This is just a test class, so you don't usually put parameters here. But yeah, you can have your specific methods that would, you can call easier. They would store your query. So from test class, you just call that method, right?
Okay, yeah.
Let's see if that works. Let me try to update. Okay. I won't see anything like that, so let me. What was the username? Do you guys remember? Was it dbank username? Yeah, I think so. So now you should have all the accesses to test database as well. Now let's try again. Okay, that worked. And I remember the problem here was it returns false anyway. I see, so now there is an email for Jane, which we didn't insert. So updating again will work pretty much the same way with the query, just instead of query, you will call execute statement. And if we run that again, just to see what it returns. So it returns false. It's going to throw an error. Still false though. Okay, it just continues to return false. So I'm not sure if that can be any. So in order to validate that, we will have to query, right? So select email from get 0 and get email. That's my first entry. And the second one, okay, so what's going on here? First, we send a statement to update a specific record, right? Again, it's parameterized. Also, in order to validate that, we will query with the same parameter. So we can put it as a variable as well. So I'm updating this record and I'm querying this record. That's why I'm using the same variable, you see. Then I'm using list of maps method of conversion, first record and get email. And that should match my email I initially set that I am gonna update. Okay, so these are variables here. Update record. And validate record was updated. And it was, so it passed. Let's try another email. And again, this can be all parameterized the way you want it. And
Nazar, I have a question. Is database automates rapidly, like immediately?
Yeah, if you execute a statement, yeah, see it straight away.
Okay, so you don't need any weights like in the Selenium when you like inserting and then I'm trying to validate it.
No, you don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, database is right away. Okay. Cool. So we got the update. Let's go to, we got truncate, we got exit statement, which is covering update. So we can do delete with the regular statement, but we can also create a method. Say, so again, usually you delete by ID. So our delete record method will expect ID, which is again, not always columns names are IDs. So let's do string value. Let's see what that works. It might have a problem with data type, so well, let's try. Delete from the table. Table, column, value. Okay, remember, I think I mentioned this once. So what string format does is just pretty much the same what we did with question marks. First parameter will replace first %s. So table value will go into %s first one. Column value will go instead of %s second one. And the actual value will go instead of third %s. And that's it. Return, execute statement. We might have a problems with data types, but let's test it. If we do, we'll stick with integer and IDs. Okay, so I'm deleting from test my table. I'm deleting by ID column, and I'm deleting the number one. Yeah, that actually worked. Website was deleted. Okay, so you got delete, you got update, you got truncate. Let's see, we actually didn't see that work. So I got one value. Let's try truncating it. Did you see, since we deleted, count didn't refresh, so count still went continued, we got the second one, remember, you see? But after we truncate, count should refresh. So count worked. Truncate worked. And the count was refreshed. Okay. Honestly, I don't remember if we can have multiple values in one query. We certainly can, but I don't remember the syntax. Okay. So yeah, you can specify value if you're inserting or values. Okay, we still have time. Let's look. The worst part. The worst part is inserting records. Because inserting records, you can still insert with the query, right? With a statement like we did. But there is a good way of doing that with beans. So let's try insert with the query. So you see that. Or more properly, SQL statement. Okay. And we'll see if we can parameterize this now too. Okay, inserting worked. So we want to have question mark, question mark, question mark, and question mark. Okay, so we inserted parameterize as well. Okay, so we don't have much time. So the question is, do you want to go over everything again, or do you want me to show you how to insert beans? Insert beans might get a little confusing, and again, it's inserting overall, it's not something we really deal with. So even if you do, the insert statement should be fine.
Maybe
I think we can rewatch if we want to, go over. We can always rewatch it. So I think you should just show as much as you can and explain as good as you can, and we just will rewatch it after to understand fully.
Okay. Let me quickly cover that then.
Oh, that would be nice if you will actually show everything again, but kind of pointing step by step. Because rewatching, like from the previous lesson, for example, is for me, I didn't really get it because it was like jumping between the classes and I'm like, what's going on? So rewatching not really helping me personally.
Okay,
so I don't know.
Guys, let's vote. So we have two options. First option, continue with the insert bean. Do you know how to raise hands in Zoom? We can also see how many people are watching us. Okay, so who's voting for the first option? So far, only one.
How to raise hand?
Okay, let me see.
What was the shortcut? Sorry. Oh.
Yeah, where do you raise? Oh, so guys, tell me where do you raise hands?
Option Y.
Did you find it? Okay, so 6 people, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Okay, and second option, just repeat everything from the beginning quickly.
Fake voting.
Who's voting 2 times?
Yeah, I think someone from the first one didn't remove their hands too. Still, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm
Anyway,
voting for both.
let's try to do both, and that will be super fast. So, okay, I'll start with inserting bean. For that, like I said before, we don't need beans for database, but if you want to insert stuff, it's always better to have beans. So you have entities as a table. So this way, class will represent a table. Again, for us, don't get confused. Beans we need just to make it life easier with API testing. API will already have beans, so you just create a query. But if you insert database, you will better work with beans. It's just easier to do it this way. Remember, like even we have this parameterization. Where was it? Where were we? Test. We have only 4 columns, and it's already 4 question marks, so many different values. It's already hard to work. Like not hard, but too hard-coded, too strange. So it's good if we have a class that we can set first name, set last name, and then insert object, right? And it goes straight to the database. Okay, so let me try to make it as quick as possible. And we had which class? User profile. Okay, so user profile. I'm just gonna add the remaining columns. Customers. Okay, like I have a address, country. I don't have date of birth. I don't have DME. I don't know what is that for. Email address. First name I have. Gender. Phone, last name I have. locality.
Zara, I think your screen freezing.
Yeah, I'm just copying here for now, so it's easier. I'm gonna move it here soon. So region, SSN, title, work phone. Okay, so this is that. We'll make them strings. Postal code might be zero integer. Postal code no varchar. Region varchar. Okay, we might already have a region, right? Okay, so for inserting, we require to have an array that would represent the same thing, column names, but the difference is it has to be in the specific order as it is in database. Okay, so we have ID, address, country, DOB, DOM, email address, first name, home phone, I should have picked a smaller table, I guess. Mobile phone. Okay. So having those fields, we're gonna use the same thing, something else from the same library. we used, where is it? Okay, it's in the result. We moved it to result set handler. Okay, so query runner is a very useful class that has whole different like cool things to running queries, but the coolest stuff is when it's inserting. So let's say I'll just initialize it here. Query, delete, truncate, execute. So you see, query runner has this method, fill statement with bean. It needs the prepared statement. Remember, prepared statement is created for query. Then it needs the bean. And then it needs the properties. So it needs the properties in order to know in which order to put those properties into the query. So the same way we're gonna replace question marks, but the replacement using properties of a bean and just preparing that statement is done by query runner. Execute. So let's see how it works. Okay, we have user profile. And for bean, you can always keep your insert query here. So insert into user profile. And it's digital bank. And we have to do the same thing we did. Just need to know one. Okay, now in your user profile, you can of course have public boolean, not a static method, but a regular. let's try to see how it works. But first, I'm gonna add permission. Okay, actually it seems like we do have insert privileges. So let's try. I'm only gonna set none null. So it's ID. It's date of birth. Can take an existing one. Email address. And social security number. Strange that first name, last name is allowed to be null. Okay, and the main thing now, user profile itself has a insert method, right? Now let's see. Okay, we forgot open here. So, phone. Do you guys see what was the issue?
Extra.
Space.
Yeah. So this thing is strict. Okay, let's see if that worked. So we should have one by a weird record with everything empty. And that's the second one. See, email at gmail.com. Nothing else. Social security, ID 999. So yeah. So this way it's much easier. You don't have to deal with nulls yourself. Whichever you don't want to insert, you don't have to deal with. I mean, it's easier to just set the values and it's readable. So you might have a whole bunch of methods inside the user profile itself that might, for example, generate some of the data. I mean, even generally, you can, like with Faker, you can populate the whole database. And in this way, it's much faster and I think more cleaner.
Excuse me, Nazar.
Yeah.
In MySQL, null and empty field, is it make sense? Like, is it different?
Yeah. So if it's empty, you usually search it with where ID equals empty string or single space might be. And is null, you have to do is null. So yeah, this is like a good test. If something is not supposed to be null, so you might also test it if it's not empty. Right, so if you find empty spaces, then you can ask if is it allowed by the requirements, right? So you can also, but also some columns might be obvious that it's not allowed to be empty space, like first name. In our case, it's allowed null, but originally, if you think about it, why would you need to have a customer information if you don't have his first name, right? So that's already weird. So something like first name, it's just like obvious, this shouldn't be empty. But for example, whatever email address is, if you see it's empty but never null, you can clarify, do we allow empty email address fields? Okay, so we actually do have 15-20 minutes left. So this you will have, if it was too fast, you'll just have to rewatch and practice. Just create 1, 2, 3 beans and you will be, it should be super easy. Just main thing, I will ask you guys, I did a mistake doing it on Digital Bank. If you're gonna practice this, please don't do it on Digital Bank. Create some table for yourself in test or classic models. So classic models, you can do whatever you want with it, and it has nice connections too. So you can insert customers, employees, and so on. But don't do it on Digital Bank because you might need to, you will be dealing with it on your API classes too.
I have a question. You usually use this at your work or not really?
No, not really. Inserting, no. It might,
yeah.
I did once. So in my experience, I had, so one of the teams, they asked me to create a table and insert test results into the table. So if we run tests on a daily basis, they wanted to insert test results into a table as well. So because the tests were specific, you were comparing like sales, summary, procurement, and all that stuff. So they wanted to see those summaries on a daily basis as well. So yeah, this thing was, there might be cases, again, if you're a heavy API tester and your team, you might be the only one on your team and your team is very specific. You don't have a huge database. You have a separate database for your service, which is fairly small. They might allow you to do that. And that might actually help you with create some of the scenarios that won't be possible to do with APIs only. You know, so things like that.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, and you can use it as an example. So test results, insert into database. If they ask you if you ever worked, say once I had an experience, that's it. You don't do much insert statements. Okay, so forgot where was I? So let's quickly go over, I guess. So remember, utils v1, if you are highly on the UI side and barely do any database, like 35% of all of your testing, you don't need to just spend a lot of time building a database framework. The list of maps is more than enough, especially if you build the queries nice. It's always easier and just simple way to do things. Version 1, let me delete this, it's not needed here anymore. Version 1 just has the most plain way to deal with database. Open connection, close connection, get column names can be even private because we don't really use it. We don't need to use it. Query the database to get the result set and then convert it, pass that result set to convert it into list of maps, right? And you can modify it to return directly list of maps straight from the query method. That we think is going to be more useful. Okay, the main part, and let's go from the beginning. So open connection, again, open connection just establishes the connection with the database with the use of JDBC drivers, right? So what do we need to do? So we connection interface and we establish get connection method with the driver manager. So for each particular driver, it will has its own implementation of creating connection. So we happen to work with MySQL. So our driver manager automatically identifies our driver type. That's why it's able to establish connection. And we need to provide a JDBC URL for that. That's pretty much it. JDBC URL consists of JDBC keyword, driver type, host address or IP address. Again, this is just an IP address of the computer that is hosting our database server. Okay, so your computers has this IP addresses too. So this is just an IP address to the computer, usually very powerful, that is hosting and running your database server on a specific port. Then we provide a database name. So this is optional, as you've seen. We can always do the default connection and include the database name in our queries. Database name dot table. Then we have properties like username and password. Okay. So this is plain open method with no parameters that opens a default connection. And we call open method with empty string. So open method with string parameter, which is database name, will open a connection to a particular database, right? So here it simply does string method replace, and we replace the database in curly braces, which can be anything, with the database name. Right? So if we provide a database, you will put that database name here and we will connect to the specific database. If we provide empty, it will simply delete this. Ooh. Didn't get what happened anyway. So we will simply delete this and will be empty like this. So default. Okay, execute statement. Again, in order to update, create, insert, update, delete, truncate, we need to call a statement, not a query. So if we work with prepared statement, it's execute method, execute statement. And with regular statement, it's actually execute as well. So just execute. Right? When we run query, we do execute query. We'll get there. Now, prepared statement. Prepared statement, it helps us to create parameterized queries. So we place a question mark. Again, one thing I noticed when I did that, you cannot put question mark in an actual statement. So I cannot do from question mark. This will not work. Prepared statement will not replace this. It can only replace values. So where, like comparison values. So where ID equal, where ID more, where ID in, you can do this too, and so on. And
can it be used in join on?
Oh, on. Didn't try that, but usually you see when you have a join, usually it's the same keys, so no need to parameterize. So since you cannot parameterize the tables already, the join will still have the static values, static keys that you're joining on. Since
yeah, makes sense.
Same tables. Okay, so just again quickly, we need to have same number parameters. As we have question marks in our query or statement, which is the same thing. But anyway, so because if you have too many queries, it will throw you an exception, not enough parameters. Or no, it's not going to throw you an exception. It's just going to send that query with a question mark to a database, and then the database will give you an exception. And then if you have too many parameters, our loop will try to set object, which is index won't exist. So if it's going to try set object of 5th question mark, and we have only 3, then it will give us exception. Prepared statement will give us exception. So again, we need to have same number of parameters as we have question marks in our statement. Inserting bin. So this is the last thing we went over. So let's skip. Truncating table. Again, we simply execute the statement which we put together on the fly. Truncate table plus table name. Let's make it nicer a little bit. So we also have a closing semicolon. Okay, again, string format %s will replace string parameter. So first parameter will replace first %s. Now delete the record. So we did this weird thing here. So we need to specify the table we want to delete from, column, and value. And it's all string manipulation. So we don't prepare a statement, and statement replaces question marks, because again, it will not work with the columns. So we did it our way, which is, as always, deleting records is the best practice to do with IDs. So we will assume that we will have only one column. So delete from a table, name of the ID column, and the value of the ID column. Again, this might not be the best solution. So if you see in your table IDs are always integers, then you can remove this and keep it integer. But usually database is good in converting strings into integers, so it's fine. Okay, query method. So this is the query method where we wrap our result set into result set handler. So let's come back to this. Let's first go over query to RS. So query to RS is straightforward. Again, we check if connection is null, we will open a default connection. If we don't have any parameters, we don't need to prepare statements, so we will execute a query with the regular statement. And otherwise, we will prepare the statement and the same way replace question marks with the parameters. Okay, and closing connection. So we also set the connection and statement to nulls. So in case you want to reopen them, the open method has those conditions. If you close it, it's not going to turn to null. It's going to be closed, but object will not be null. So that's why we assign null to it. So if you want to reopen it during the same execution, this is going to go into the if statement. Okay, query, result set handler. So the handler, we just created to make it more readable, nicer, I think, and have less methods, just chain things. So what we do, we wrap our result set into result set handler. So what that is for, it just sets the local variable result set and bin processor, which we need for inserting bins. But let's not go talk about that. So bin processor, remember, in our particular case, we only use it in order to convert our result set into bin list of beans. And again, we need to provide the result set and the class of our objects that we want to create beans of. So like we want to convert our result set, each row into a single object, Java object. So we need to provide the class of that object so that bin processor can create classes for us, set the variables based on the result set columns. Okay. And another one is the old one, to convert our result set into list of maps. Again, row will stand for a map, which key is going to be column name, and value will be the data that's in that row under that column, right? And list will, each element of the list, so pretty much list is a table, the result table, element of which is not column, what is it? Row. And map is actually a row. So list of rows, right? Again, get column names. It's the one that we use result set metadata. Metadata can come up on an interview. It's popular thing. So again, it's a data about data, which helps us to identify number of columns in the result set and the names of the columns. These are the main things. There might be something else, but these are the main things. And that's pretty much it. So again, you can go either way. Database utils version 2 comes with the handler. Version 1 is plain, where you only get the list of maps. And these are, we just put some tests together. And models, transaction and user profile. So again, good practice, guys. You have your own frameworks. Add yourself the database utilities, decide which way you want to go with. And yeah, try not to copy, but retype at least and run multiple tests, create your own tests. Just make sure you understand how is it running, what's like happening, how do you process and work with it.
If we have any questions, can we reach you out, pin you?
Yeah, you can always ping me. The problem is I'm not very active, so I'll get your message, but you know, it's not gonna be the same day most likely.
When we need to provide URL and this link, path, and everything, it should be provided on, I don't know, DevOps team or someone else.
Yeah. You can ask everything. Yeah, so this link pretty much anyone should know. You can ask directly, can you give me a JDBC link? Because JDBC link even might be used by some database like tools, like this tool. I've seen some tool that you can just put the JDBC link and it will do the same thing, like open the connection. So you can directly ask for JDBC link, it's appropriate. If no, you can ask for credentials. So you will need a server name or server address and credentials, SQL account credentials. So username and password.
And if we will work with the MySQL, we will work with this workbench also, yeah?
Workbench, yeah, depends. Usually they allow you to install whatever you want. So you can ask what are they using, you know, just to be. I know one thing, they usually, I'm not sure other databases, but I know for certain, Microsoft SQL Server, they also allow you to log in with a Windows account. So they might give an access to your Windows account. So you can log in manually, but for the JDBC, you still need to ask them to create a user, SQL user for you. They would have username and password for automation. Because again, they might give an access to your Windows user. So from your Windows machine, you can only provide the server and you will log in, you know, just by using your Windows account. But again, for automation, you need the username and password. There might be a way with the Windows user, but still, you know, you're running your test on virtual machines and I don't know. It's better when each person has their own credentials too. Okay. Any questions, guys?
In case of BDD framework, we mainly will store our data in databases, yes? Or it depends also?
So BDD framework, not store, you don't really insert anything. Again, if you create steps, you create specific steps. And I get user with ID 1, with ID 1 from database, something like that. Yeah, I didn't really work with this with Cucumber, especially on the database side. Okay, so there should be a way to create a method, right? Create step definition. There you go. Okay, ID. Trouble. User, so you get your own user. Am I in different? I am in different.
Yeah, it's
in different project.
Yeah. So like this, and then let's say object, but I don't have database details. So you would have a query, right? Select. Select start from users where ID equals question mark. And then our DB utils query. You got your query, comma, ID. And that two beans that user dot class. And that's it. Then your user, if you assign a user, equals, and here it's list. like that. Users dot is empty. Then your user will be null, else users get 0. Right. So you got the user, and then your next steps will be validating user whatever the way you want it.
With the help of assertions, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you can have multiple steps, get users from API, then get users from database, and the third step will be compare the 2 users. I don't know what's the general practice. How do you store this here? So can steps return actually anything? Yeah, that's nice. Then return user. In our case, new object. So you can get a user with from database with this method, get a user from API with another method, and have a third step comparing those objects, which is object equals, right? Or compare particular columns you're interested in, I mean fields and so on. You'll have a lot of ideas. Or just, for example, if you're inserting through API, you want to validate it's present in database. So you would select from users, you will not have ID, but you might have some other column like last name or something. And then just assert user is not null, and that's it. Or assert list users is not empty. Things like that, counts and so on. Okay. Also, a lot of the cases I've seen, when it's heavy on automation part, you might want to create some fake values, like different identifications, or like last name or something like that. So you want to check, you would have a method generate a fake last name. For example, you would want to check after you generate it with a faker, you would want to check if it doesn't exist in database already. If it does, generate another one and keep checking. So select from users where last name equals the generated last name. If it's empty, then okay. If it's not, generate another one. So while loop, like that. You'll see a lot of, these ideas come when you actually go to work, but you have everything you need. It's just putting this all together. It will depend on your, what you're working on. Cool. Any other questions, guys?
Thank you, Nazar.
Nazar, will we have any mentorings with you in the future?
Yeah, well, so how many you have? Just 1 month left? How much time?
Yeah, I guess it's exactly 1 month.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll try to create at least 1 or 2 mentorings after you're a little bit comfortable with API. So then you actually will go over the database. Right? I'm pretty sure API classes will include some parts of database and like scenarios that you would follow, but yeah, I'll try to do 1 or 2 mentorings at least.
Thank you.
Sounds
Nazar.
good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
it was-
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Nazar.
See you. Good luck on the market. By the way, market is very good.
Thank you.
All right, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
Probably.
We are not good yet, but good to hear.
Oh, it's good. It seems like it's the best in the past 2 years at least. It's really good now.
Oh,
Time to
Oh,
change
excuse me.
something, yeah.
Yeah. guys, good luck again. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.